Are WWE bringing blood back, the saucy buggers? We have new champions crowned and a return at Impact Rebellion last night, and a real reason for a Raw star's absence has been revealed in the news right now. What are you laughing at?
Nothing. That was fantastic.
Big news from WWE. We started, by the way. We're bringing back blood, apparently, aren't we, Andrew?
We are apparently. So speaking with Lightshed partners, Nick Khan indicated that NBC Universal may be supportive about an edgier final hour of Raw that would see possibly the return of blood.
Now, pardon me if I've heard this one before.
Yeah.
I'm sure if we go back to 2018, 2019 sort of time, an edgier third hour of Raw was meant to have been happening back then. And I can't remember it being quite edgy.
No, me neither. It still felt kind of turned back a little bit, at least.
Like they were edging.
We were getting there.
What did Nick Khan say, though, Andrew?
Nick Khan said, when we're specifically talking about the 10 to 11 hour on Raw, we're specifically talking to NBCU and ourselves about what we do, what we do, what
It's
that
like
move
speaking
forward.
like Yorkshireman about what we do, what that moving forward.
Oh, fair enough. Right, we think that NBCU would be supportive, but we're not on a final conclusion on that. So with TV deals expiring and WWE's merger with Endeavor, there's hopes that a new deal could be struck that sees the third hour of Raw presented in a more edgier format.
Are you on board with this? I'm on board with this, but they need to get it right. The right tone of edgy, if that makes sense. You don't want another Raw Underground where they're trying to be like, you know, whatever that game was back in 2002, your death jams and all that sort of malarkey.
Yeah, because there's too much of a contrast if you do something like that. I feel like you've got the first 2 hours which feel, you know, like their own thing, and then you move into an edgier final hour. You don't want it to like tonally shift so much that it just doesn't feel like it makes sense.
And on top of that, with the blood thing at the forefront of our minds, we don't want a Jon Moxley situation. Jon Moxley has bled that much in AEW that it's now numb to everybody who sees it. It's more of a shock when he doesn't bleed in a match than when he does bleed in a match. So maybe once or twice again the third hour for maximum impact.
Well, I was like, oh, Cody Rhodes is going to be salivated at this fact, isn't he? This like Cody's
imagine
thing.
him flaming tables, everything.
I mean, that could be
And
a thing that
the crowd will
happens.
still boo him. No, joking. He's a different Cody now. It was
He
just
is.
funny in AEW when he went through all of that and then still got booed.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, he did put himself through that table rather than his opponent at
That was
time.
a shoot suplex from Andrade, reverse suplex off the top.
Beautiful.
There was
still.
nothing he could have done.
No.
Anyway, obviously a lot of scuttlebutt since the WrestleMania and since this Endeavor, I think they call it unification there, the merger with the UFC. Listen, a lot of people just think, oh my God, Vince McMahon is back in creative. I thought I've not seen last week's SmackDown yet, but last week's Raw, it felt like a Triple H Raw. I don't know about you, did you see it?
Yeah, it absolutely did. I thought that as well. There was a lot of discussion and talk about whether things would be changing after we saw the Raw. Following WrestleMania, Vince McMahon was very much there, and I think that was because he was in the area at the time as well. And we were all thinking, oh no, I don't want this to be a thing going forward. And it seems to have sort of got back on track to where it was prior to when Vince was there at Raw the other week.
But Nick Khan has also addressed the rumours that Vince McMahon has been taking control back in the creative chair in gorilla position in the WWE, where he said when this deal was officially announced, Vince sent out a company-wide email to 1,000 or so employees, including myself. In the email, he laid out the structure of the new co, which certainly you guys have read about and are familiar with. In addition to Vince being the executive chairman, Ari Emanuel being the CEO, Mark Shapiro being the president, Dana White continuing as the president of UFC, and me at WWE. Specifically, Vince articulated that Paul Levesque remains the sole chief creative officer. So how does it work, Andrew?
How does it work? Does that mean because I'm technically in charge of the business side of the business that I don't seek input from other people, or I wouldn't seek input from Vince McMahon or create this entire empire? Who created this entire empire? That would be a mistake on my behalf.
Paul and Vince have a family relationship, a relationship that stands back to the mid-90s. Paul's in charge of creative. If he wants input from Vince, or Vince has ideas that he and Paul are going to communicate, that's always going to be the case. We are lucky to have Vince. We are lucky to have Paul in control of creative. So, if we're going to believe what the big rich man tells us, Andrew, it sounds like it's business as usual from the second half of last year, or from the summer onwards, because Triple H did mention in the press, didn't he, around about, I don't know what time it would have been, like Christmas time maybe, that he had been taking on like little hints and little nudges, little bits of advice from Vince McMahon, even though he was in sole control of Raw and SmackDown and all of the main roster output.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it looks like Nick Khan here doesn't completely rule out the fact that Vince is involved in some manner, at least, but it does feel as though Paul has the majority say over what's going on. I'm sure Vince will pipe in little bits here and there, as we saw, leading to WrestleMania. Brock versus Omos was a thing, and now it's not a thing again. It's like fantastic. Done, isn't it? Straight away done, and that did feel like a very Vince McMahon-esque match to put on a WrestleMania card. So I'm sure we'll still get little hints here and there, but hopefully... I've got my fingers crossed. Overall, things are going to be a bit more cohesive going forward with Paul in charge.
Triple H just nails a sick shoot pedigree on Vince McMahon if he tries to stick his nose in.
If only.
Hopefully he does that.
That would be good. Bring the blood back. That's how you bring the blood back.
Just stab him with a fork in the forehead. That's what we're talking about, isn't it? Up the Triple H. Anyway, over to Impact Wrestling. They held their Rebellion show over the weekend. We have a couple of big scoops from that event, just in case you didn't see it. First and foremost, we had a big return to Impact, didn't we, Andrew?
Nick Aldis is back with Impact. So Aldis made his Impact Wrestling return to call commentary for the world title match. Aldis recently appeared in the battle between Impact Originals and Honor No More at last year's Slammiversary. He revealed whilst in the commentator's chair that he has signed a deal to make a full-time return to the company.
It's a nice signing.
It is.
It's a safe pair of hands. It's someone who offers something very different to the modern day professional wrestler.
I agree. And also, with Mickie James and Impact too, want to spend more time with family, makes more sense.
Did she not leave? I saw a picture on the ground where she was like, she put her cowboy hat in the ring.
I don't think she's left,
But she's retired.
Well, she's got a lot of injuries to go and nurse.
She's being put out to pasture.
Taken round the back of the woodshed.
Always takes it too far, doesn't he? Anyway, then we have news of a new world champion in Impact Wrestling. The finish goes down where this man, who I'm going to tease a little bit more, people might know, gets out of a hoverboard lock from Kushida, who was also in the match, and turned it into a KR! Is how I like to. I've been watching The Office over the weekend, and that's a Dwight K.
Oh, yeah, of course.
KR!
Yeah.
It's the KIA? The
KIA, yeah.
Yeah, it's Steve Macklin. He's your new Impact Wrestling World Champion. Things went down after the bell, though, as well, didn't they, Andrew?
They certainly did. So, post-match, Macklin demanded that Impact President Scott D'Amore present him the title personally, but after D'Amore threw the title at the new champ, Macklin hit him with the belt, and this then led to that new signing, Mr. Nick Aldis, entering the ring to make the save. They're squaring down. That's going to be your next feud.
It writes itself, doesn't it? But we also have a new Knockouts champ, because of course we mentioned Mickie James did the old hat in the ring sort of thing. So we had a matchup between Deonna Purrazzo and Jordynne Grace. Who the bloody hell won?
Deonna Purrazzo won, everybody. So, obviously, as you said, with Mickie James injured, it was left to Jordynne Grace and Deonna Purrazzo to fight it out to become the new Knockouts champion, with the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo lifting the title once again in Rebellion's main event. Purrazzo weathered several big power moves from Grace. She's a big power lady these days, even kicking out of a Grace driver before putting Jordynne away with a Queen's Gambit power driver to kick off her third reign as the Knockouts champion. And I think that's a good choice there, I believe, as well.
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not the most avid Impact watcher, but their women's division is probably one of the standout women's division in the world of wrestling.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, absolutely. That's it.
Absolutely. That's analysis. And we end with news of WWE Store's absence and why they have been absent for so long. We have a report from Fightful Select. It's about Johnny Gargano, and they are saying Johnny Gargano re-aggravated the shoulder injury that had him sidelined for much of January. We're told the shoulder injury got worse after his Royal Rumble return, and by the time of the NXT match with Grayson Bloody Waller, he was severely hampered and using one arm, which makes that match all the more impressive.
Absolutely.
It makes you sick that people can do that when their bodies are hanging off the things.
He's too talented.
Yeah. The hope from the company is that he can repair the injury with physical therapy opposed to surgery. There was speculation that Vince McMahon returned into the fold led to Gargano's absence because, of course, he's probably too small for Vince McMahon to be a viable option.
Yes.
For some reason.
But
that isn't the case. McMahon actually was directly involved with communicating to Gargano in late 2021 that he wanted Gargano to remain in the company. Wow.
Well, that's good. So maybe he did have plans for him after all if he was going to remain in charge of everything, yeah?
I mean, we did read about Vince, according to Nick Khan, Triple H and Vince McMahon having a relationship that dated back to the mid-90s. So maybe Triple H was like, I love this boy. Please protect him. And Vince was like,
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, I'd love to see him back very soon. I still think there's something on the table for a DIY versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens title match somewhere down the line. Please, careful now. Charlie Horse.
That's a nice bit of booking you've done there, Andrew. Anyway, anything different to what Gargano was doing before he went missing with the weird comedy shtick that wasn't quite landing.
Yeah.
He just came across as a really annoying prick, which is probably why I resonate with him quite so much. Anyway, that's been it for the news today. Any closing remarks, Andrew?
No, you can go and watch our 9 pitches for who should dethrone Roman Reigns on the YouTube channel now. Came out yesterday. You and Tom booked some fantastic final pitches for how realistically Roman's reign should come to an end.
You did a fantastic first one and second one.
And then it was sandwiched between 2 even better ones after that. So do go and check that out. Have you got any closing remarks, Ross?
Goodbye.
Doodles.